Hi guys, and welcome to a new video.
The 1950s and 60s were a unique time for India.
We had just gotten independence from a country that by then have controlled 24% of world's land, with more than 412 million people under British rule. We were devastated and completely broken as a country, but we set ourselves an unrealistic and almost unachievable goal to raise to the same level that the developed countries have reached at that time. It's said that history is written by the victors, and after the British left India, there was an obvious power vacuum in the subcontinent, and the politicians at that time must have guessed those who wrote history had the most power. Everyone was scrambling for legitimacy and historical backing for all the ideologies that they believed. In a way, everyone was after the historians and academicians who were taught by the British at that time. Maybe it was a good time to be a historian at that time. Anyway, it resulted in a lot of myths and outright lies being conflated for the history of India. One of my previous videos was about such a lie that have been propagated and still taught in schools, the history of Emperor Ashoka and the Mauryan Empire. The link is given there. Please check it out. When the East India Company and then the British gained control of the Indian subcontinent, they started to create a historical account that favored their rule. Now, the early historians, the ones that we call Indologists, had a great respect for the Indian culture and the traditional wisdom that we had. They include William Jones, Warren Hastings, and so on. They translated a lot of Sanskrit texts into English and other European languages and wrote extensively on the vast system of thought and knowledge systems that were existing in India at that time. But later on, after the East India Company was able to take control of a large portion of the country, and then when the rule was transferred to the British Queen, history became a tool to legitimize and to uphold that rule. There was an obvious problem of racism and white supremacy at that time. James Mill categorized Indian history into a Hindu, Muslim and British periods. He says that his never having to been to India and knowing none of the native languages were an advantage and a guarantee of his objectivity. But far from objective, his is, as he says, a critical and judging history whose judgments of Hindu customs and practices are particularly harsh. He denounces their rude and backward culture for its ignorance, superstition, mistreatment of women, and leaves no doubt that he favors a thoroughgoing reform of Indian institutions and practices. And many followed on this path. Indian historians did the same thing that the British historians did. Aryan Invasion theory, the backwardness of Hinduism, glory of Islamic rule in India are all the history written with an agenda of supremacy. These perspectives haven't died off as they should have been. Rather, they still dominate the discourse on Indian history. In this video, we will just look at some of these distorted histories that have been told and the historians and academicians behind that. And in the coming videos, we will discuss each of these topics separately. There is so much to talk about this. So please tune in and don't forget to subscribe if you want to get these updates. Aryan Invasion theory was first introduced as a proper theory by Max Müller, the German Indologist Max Müller, in 1853. The basis of this theory was the similarities in Indo-European languages. And of course, as the West wanted to dominate the world, Aryan Invasion theory basically says this. Aryans were a class of fair-skinned agrarian noblemen who came from Central Asia to inhabit India after the Indus Valley period. They destroyed the Indus Valley civilization and settled in India and also composed the Vedas. But today we know that this theory has no historical ground to stand on. But historians like Romila, Thapar and Irfan Habib says that the Hindutva forces are trying to distort history by distorting the Aryan invasion theory. So Aryan invasion theory, in spite of having no proof, cannot be debunked. Why is that? Well, basically the entire argument of caste system is based on Aryan invasion theory. Speaking on the Aryan question, Habib said, the way the Aryan question is being treated, it almost always seems that the RSS view of the Aryans or the Indian governments and the UGCs is like that of Nazi Germany. The Germans idolize the Aryans and the RSS feels that it's great to be an Aryan. Why isn't it great to be a Dravidian? It's just a Nazi idea transported to India. The Aryan invasion theory is made to be the base of caste system by the academic historians. Gods like Ram, Indra, goddesses Lakshmi, Durga are all interpreted as the Aryan figures, the oppressed native Asuras or Dasas or Dravidians or the indigenous tribes that existed before the migration. There is also a distinction between Aryas and Dasas in Vedic literature, once again interpreted to mean that an invasion by Aryans happened and it followed an oppression of a pre-existing race or a language group. All of this is of course without proof. And as I'm reading this, I come to know that the academic historians claim that the Hindutva, the right wing claimed that that Aryans were indigenous to India, but that's not what I am talking about. Of course, there was a steppe migration wherein the people of Iran and the people who were west of Iran actually did come into the Indian subcontinent, but there was no invasion or oppression that happened. As we discussed before, the Indian history is divided into ancient, medieval and modern history, where ancient stands for Hindu, medieval stands for Islam and modern stands for British. The medieval India was ruled by powerful yet benevolent Islamic rulers. That's what we were taught. And the history claims that we were prosperous, peaceful and excelling during that period. But there are known records of genocides, cultural wars and eradication of communities. There was an obliteration of communities and traditions in the subcontinent during the Islamic rule. But for some reason, these accounts are completely ignored. To this day, the greater portion of history that has been taught in any schools is the Islamic history, the Sultanates and the Mughals. We know very little about the Hindu rulers, the Hindu tradition, the Hindu traditional practices, the Buddhist, Jaina, Ajivaka or Gnostic dynasties or cultural practices or anything, not even Chavarka dynasties. And today a lot of right-wing, conservative and Indic historians and academicians are coming up and saying that these need to be taught. Young generations will not appreciate the history that once was, what India once was. But then that is dubbed as Hindutva and fascist and whatnot. If all these aren't enough, the academic historians have fabricated a lot of historical accounts to drive their narrative. One that is socialist, Nehruvian. We were told that Ayodhya is not the birthplace of Lord Rama and that there is no temple in existence prior to the Babri Masjid. Socialism was upheld by using the historical figure of Emperor Ashoka, who is not half as good a ruler as we were taught. Again, I've made a video on that. Please check it out for more information. The link is also in the description. Ramchandra Guha's India After Gandhi, the book that UPSC aspirants keep at their bedside, is full of propaganda on a glorious India gifted by the Congress and the Nehru family, and of course also about the success of movements started by the Congress or by Gandhi. Any opposition to this narrative is dubbed fascist, pseudo-history and historical distortion. Hinduism has to be a religion based on caste system. Islamic rule has to be the liberation that the subcontinent required, and the British educational system and its consequences cannot be changed. I'm ending this video on this note, but there will be more videos on all of these different topics in detail. So please tune in for that. To do that, you just have to hit the subscribe button, and if you like, also hit the bell icon. Please tell me in the comment section what you think about all of these issues, and please hit the like button. My book Life in a Ziploc Bag is on prime listing on Amazon and on Flipkart, so please go and check it out, and the link is given in the description. Share this video with others and follow me on my Instagram and Facebook pages. The links are given in the description. Thank you and have a great time.